everyone. Good afternoon. We're going to get started. Welcome, everyone. I'm Soyan Park, and I'm working with United Cambodian Community for these events. We're so excited. We are gathered here today in a spirit of memory and imagination, honoring families who carried grief, language, and hope across oceans. This space today is for honoring survivors, for lifting up voices of those who lived and those who inherited memory, and for celebrating the beauty that blooms even after devastation. We thank Kubo, Long Beach, for holding us in this cultural home, and we thank you, elders, survivors, neighbors, youth, friends, for bringing your presence, your listening, and your hearts. Rumduol, Echoes of Resilience, is a commemoration of courage and creativity, lifting up the voices of survivors and the generations that followed. This afternoon, we'll hear from our panelists, Dr. Sara Pol-Lim, and Seyan Cyprasuth. They'll share in community conversation and close with a reception and a book signing. There's also light refreshments in the back, and for those who would like, books will be available for purchase for signing. Okay, so we are honored to welcome Dr. Sara Pol-Lim, a groundbreaking community leader and the first Cambodian woman to serve as executive director of the United Cambodian Community. For more than 20 years, she has built bridges between government, schools, and neighborhoods, from guiding the California Census to helping create the Cambodian American model curriculum and leading Trauma Talk to bring healing into mental health. She earned her doctorate at CSU Long Beach and recently published her memoir, Coming to Terms with Historical Trauma, honoring 50 years of Cambodian resilience. Her work embodies leadership rooted in history, vision, and community care. Also joining us is Seyan Cyprasuth, an interdisciplinary artist whose life and work are shaped by migration, memory, and resilience. A former Cambodian refugee, he uses art as both expression and healing, connecting his own journey to the broader stories of immigrant communities. His first book, Coloring and Learning about Cambodia in the Arts, just launched this summer and is already inspiring readers across the country. Seyan has exhibited his art in nearly 50 shows worldwide. He has nurtured creativity as a professor, instructor, teacher, and mentor, and continues to inspire and lead here in Long Beach as a board member of the Arts Council of Long Beach. His practice shows us how art can open dialogue, spark creativity, and strengthen community. So I'll start here with Dr. Pol-Lim. We are here 50 years after families were uprooted and scattered across the world. Looking back, how does it feel to share your story in this particular year?
You hear me?
Yes.
Ooh, relief. I just wanted to also say hello and thank you for all of you that are being here, and especially so many community leaders in the rooms and so many friends and old friends and new friends. Thank you for being here. Relief, yes. 50 years being uprooted to a new country, having to learn everything from the Sept, right? So in a way, for many refugees, especially for me and the community that I support and live in, I can relate by the opportunity to start over, right? So we can only start over if it's a new land, if it's a new community. Because why? It's, for me, it was forgetting what you've seen and what you've been through, right? And it's only temporary. But it's allow you to pause your life. And I used to say deny, right? Denial. So that means that temporary, you can forget about your past experience and just start over. And in that starting over, it's I get nervous seeing all of you here. But the point of the matter is that 50-year trauma has no expiration date. Okay, and as long as we realize that, whether it's 50 years this year or the next 10, 50 years, history is history. It's facts, right? It's what you learn through what you've seen and what you've been through. What is important is to understand the root of your sensitivity, right? And I live through the adult life having that sensitivity that I didn't, I didn't, not, maybe I deny it, but I didn't want to deal with it. So this way I can achieve goal. So each step of my career or I work hard, if I met difficulty in life, like when I first learned English and people used to laugh at my pronunciation or so forth and have a hard time engaging the community mainstream, I would not even deter. It didn't penetrate me. I would ensure myself that this is not tough, it's just a verbal bully. I've seen tough. I knew what tough was like. And that's what kind of helped me go through each step of my career. Does that help? Okay.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Really happy to see you all in this space. So Dr. Pol-Lim and I, even though so she was an ED for United Cambodian Community, our time never overlapped at UCC. So in this space, we are educators as well as community activists and community connectors. And we work in a lot of ways side by side to help uplift the community, especially like at this moment. Yeah, and talking about healing and trauma, I think I have really been thinking about the different authors out there, like Eckhart Tolle, about creating your own new earth, new experience for yourself, and in with working with community members, and not just Cambodians, right? People that have been in the community here that have been redlined in the past, have gone through that trauma within their own community. I have really been just also reflecting around the Plato's allegory of the cave, right? Here you have these people that's been stuck under the cave. Their head is tightly looked at the shadow, which is not the real thing. And when you try to get people to look at that shadow is not the real thing, those people would almost want to kill you because you told them the truth. And that, if you think about that concept alone and apply it to all the people that in your life that have gone through those things, you're like, oh man, okay. It just gives me the chill because I am careful in my community work and how to approach them.
Thank you. Can you walk us into your work a little more specifically, choosing one moment or one story that feels like the heartbeat of the book? a passage that when you read it brings you back to the lives you are remembering and honoring?
First, yeah. Well, you know, art saved my life too. That's why I continue, because it's been truly tested for myself. I discovered art in the refugee camp in Aranyuttaya Pradesh in Thailand. So it's the first refugee camp before the Cambodian. That's it. Yeah. People mention a lot of Cambodian, but you know that other camp was in the 1976, and I think, you know, as a child when I created this book, yes, it's coloring, but it's also details in there. So it is an interactive QR code, so it takes you into a different portal on the internet where you learn about, you know, there's 3 to 5 minutes video that I really went through to look at contemporary people, current practicing artists, like Mia Lath with Modern Apsara, and the Master Ho, you know, the musician, as well. And I think what it is, you know, when you start to put your head into a book, for those of you, many of you here probably just read and dive into those, you're a bookworm, right? You're now focused in this thing for the coloring book, is that now, you know, your mind starts to wander, and imagination, that's part of the title of this talk, is so powerful, and how we try to visualize that. And those healing within the somatic symptoms of what we carry trauma within, you start to rewire your brain, rewire your body, where those pain and trauma is located.
Well, for me, it was becoming a parent. So I spoke about parenting with trauma. And it didn't hit me. I didn't realize that I have trauma until I had my first son. And at the time, he was 10 months, and I had to travel to the East Coast family function. And I pay extra attention as I have him with me to the instruction, right? And then when it said that in case of the emergency, to put on the oxygen onto yourself first before assisting the minor or your child. And I couldn't understand. I was so confused and felt the anxiety starts coming, and I go, no, my instinct is I have to protect him at all time. He's first, or else. That I couldn't understand, and I thought all kinds of, is it a different culture? You know, it's not mine, and I didn't realize until I began to write a book and memory, and I realized suddenly that, gosh, I wouldn't be here if it was not of my mother. So so many vivid memory and multiple occasions where we was going to be killed, and it was Mom, and I remember this last episode where the liberation that the Vietnamese won the war against the Khmer, and we were chasing out of the jungle, and we came across this lake, huge to me. I was still a child, and Mom was dragging me by the hair, and I've seen that, and I had no idea. She didn't know how to swim. How did she do that? So we crossed, and of course, if it was not for her, I wouldn't be here. So then I realized that, oh my God, being a parent, it's about making yourself healthy, mentally, emotionally, and physically, so that you can guide your kid, right? So that you can take care and provide for your kid. And in the community that I've seen so many survivors who couldn't do that, right? They love their kids so much that they give everything to their kid. I've been through funeral of those who pass away from asthma because afford one purchase the Zipronego asthma medication to save money for the kid, and so many that give up on themselves just because they think that, well, if I leave everything that I have, that I work so hard for my kid, that is good enough. And then when I spoke to the kid, second generation, and they say, all I want is my parent. And their life now meeting challenge of that emotional and mental impact as well, right? So then I realized that huge step that, oh no, unless I take care of myself, emotionally, mentally, and physically, then I won't do any good to my children, to the community, or for the community.
Thank you for sharing the weight of all these experiences. Writing from lived memory is never easy. What did it take emotionally, spiritually, artistically to put these words on the page? Were there moments that felt unbearable or relief? And if so, what carried you through?
Okay, so I did, well, it was harder than any job that I have ever done. It's difficult emotionally and mentally, yes, but the process in itself, and that's why I couldn't resist putting the title "Coming to Terms with Historical Trauma." It helps me to cope and to understand. And once you understand the origin of your sensitivity, right, you feel so much better. Not just, well, for me, it was a relief to know that what I've experienced, it's not just some, let's just say that I use the things that perpetrator were other, right? And then as I research and read about history, it was all about your people, your community. It's the people next door. I used to be so angry and upset at my mother, her generation, the parenting, the educated population. Why did they allow this thing to happen, right, to children? And I was children, and there's 3 other brother that was, my brother. So when I understand the compound of trauma, right, individual that have been neglected by society and uneducated and injustice, right? So I realized that geopolitics involved, societal structure involved, and the way we became, and at the time, and I read about the polluted society that was all about classes, racism, and so many levels that allow a certain group of the population say, hey, we gotta change this, so this is the act of changing it by thinking that if we get rid of a certain population and restart over, then it would solve our whole societal problem. And even though I'm a victim of that, but I also refuse to say that we're not victimized, but we have a choice if we remember and if we see clearly what the problem and what the situation is, we can help change that. So future generation wouldn't be like me, spending so many years angry at the adult before me for not doing the right thing.
Yeah, this question, huh? It's I started taking my own advice, honestly. You know, here I've been telling youth and community members how to heal and save yourself, and this is the best path forward. So this book came about was my grandnephew. I know I don't look it, but so he's 13 years old, and really, you know, his parents just split up. But we were talking. My psychologist friend, who also Dr. Peglerine, had said, you know, there are certain generation. It's not that they're beyond help, but she says focus on the kids. Focus on the kids, and then things will kind of work themselves out. So he told me, my nephew told me that, oh, I don't know anything about Cambodia. You know, and his parents are Cambodian, second generation too, because the parents were born here. And it really just broke my heart around that, because here I feel like I'm working for the community, but the people in my home and my immediate family are also more broken, in fact. And yeah, I don't want to get emotional around my siblings too. They have their own challenges, and then so when I think about their kids and their kids' challenges, that got the trauma passing on, right? The intergeneration trauma that I've been hearing about a lot, and I see that within my own family, and then these kids, the grandkids. So and it's even hard for them to color this book just to get started, right? But you know, it's just going to take time to heal, and then with more practice and loving, and I really approach people with loving and where they're at too. So that's also important.
You mentioned, but both of you are not only artists, but also builders of community. From Cambodia to the journey here, and in the work of nurturing Cambodia Town in Long Beach. What lessons have you learned along the way about resilience, imagination, and creating belonging after displacement?
I want to take that question first. Oh man. Okay, as you all know, title doesn't mean anything. Okay, you know, the community leaders, I love Mayor Rex Richardson, right? But yeah, like mayor, council member, local Cambodian leaders, you have to work with them and nurture them. They may have their own trauma and their own bias and whatnot. So I think what I've learned throughout the years, so I've been working in community 10 years, I learned on the job, right? In terms of dealing with different personalities. And but I realize it's really about relationship building, you know, approaching with authenticity and love and care is really important. When people see that you are truly loving, especially the history within the community of mistrust, of blaming, you know, and I know this is something that I worked on, and I almost squash it now, is to avoid rumor and hear what people say about so-and-so. And I don't even ever gossip anymore about anyone, because words, seeps in through our being or our mind somewhere, especially if they're negative. And so I think in terms of just working with the community, I approach everyone on a different day. Every day is a new day in building relationship.
Wow, resilient, you say? You know, for me, the word is a little bit misleading, right? I know that our community have many level of trauma were combined with those who went through the same event of those 4 years during the Cambodian genocide. Depend on where they live in a different province, the level of persecution is different, right? And then also in our community, those who well-to-do get the opportunity to come here in, you know, at the break of that war, right, 1975, because they worked with the U.S. Embassy or they were supported based on the political government at the time and get, you know, first-class treatment over here and have a sense of different point of view. And then those who've been through the survival level, right? And yes, they survived. And then they came here, they work hard, they succeed. And then people would say, oh yes, they're so resilient, right? And that some when you call resilient and that have a certain title, right? With a bit of what's the word? I was not gonna say ego, but you assume that you do great, right? If you compare with where you came from, that you've been barely alive, and you came here with nothing, and you pick up your life and start all over, and here now you're the best community member, the most successful business owner, successful profession, and then your resilience, great. But what happened with that is that, are you intact in terms of what is your view with compassion and kindness? Are you able to go back and think about where you come from? Do you have the compassion to look at people that, well, you know, if some of the people that I know would say, well, if I come here with all this thing that I brought with me and I can do it, everybody else can. So if you have that perception, to me the word resilient just doesn't work for me. So my resiliency would be the courage to tell the truth. So if you have the courage to share what have happened to you, that's facts, that's history. You can include that, and maybe perhaps, you know, the future generation can read back about your family story and where they came from, and they build resiliency by understanding the hardship, by understanding what that society was like and generation was like, and that pass on of kindness and compassion that I know this community have, that I know so many Cambodian population that they have. Because every household, if I go, including my mom, the first thing, you know, you go to friends or any relative, especially people you just met, the first thing they would bring to you was a glass of water, ice water. It's just the hospitality, right? And the sharing. I never forget that basic. If people say, oh, identity. Identity is going back to that kindness and compassion. So I dedicated the book to my grandmother, maternal grandmother, who embodied what's it like to be a Cambodian woman. She would not hit even a fly. And I used to, kind of laugh at her like, I want to hit this fly. And she would say, no, living thing, it's okay, you don't need. And I've learned that. And then when I saw the adult during the Khmer regime, during the Cambodian genocide, neglect, not only neglect, did bad to others and children, then I was confused, and I thought, what happened? Wait, what happened to the kindness and compassion that I know of? And at point, there's a short I mentioned in the book that at some point, when I was not prepared to be thrown in as children, right, to fight for food, and of course I didn't win, and I was almost upset or mad, thinking of my parents and how come they didn't, train me to be plural, didn't train me to be inconsiderate about people, because I thought the most considerate group of people. So, but that was the event that created that environment for those people who have, if you have a certain resentment for a certain group of people, that was like a free will to act on the thought that you have been bearing for so many centuries, right? So it was that excuse. And in a way, I know scholars debate, is it genocide and ostracized or just atrocity, but it's done within us as a human being. And it just, not just momentary, almost 4 years, we forgot our humanity, we forgot that we're all just human. We start looking at each other as different. This group was not suitable to continue, and that group is not suitable to continue with that process. And how could we not try to remember that? And that's what I'm hoping, not just our later generation, our community, to at least acknowledge that, yeah, we seen this and we was part of this. Now it's what we do moving forward. And for me, it was just not about the memory of my memory. It was a memory of those who's no longer here. And I dedicated that, especially to my brother, the children that were not able to survive. And it's their memory for me to make sure that they did exist at one point. So.
Thank you. I'd like to open it up for questions from the audience, and then we'll do closing remarks. So we have time for a few questions.
I'll say something. It's not a question, it's a statement. I work with Congressman Horn, and one of our staff members was Cambodian. She came recommended, and we had what is called caseworkers to help, people that came in. And one day, a certain Cambodian couple came in, and she was very helpful, with them. And another one, I needed a translator, so I asked her to come in to help. And she said, no, she's only a peasant. I will not sit down with her. Then to me that was shocking, that a Cambodian young woman would not sit to help somebody else. I learned a lot. I learned that what happened in Cambodia reflects over here in Long Beach, and I'm sure in other parts, where there's a Cambodian population. But it's that was my experience at work with her.
I'm sorry, what did she say the reason why she wouldn't help?
She was a peasant. The person that had come in, and I said to myself, how can she tell that
Couple
it's-
was a peasant.
Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing that one experience. I wanted to ask if you all would like to respond or share, and also for younger generations and for our neighbors who don't carry this history in their bones, what do you hope people will take away from today and from your writing and from these conversations?
Well, I just wanted to, acknowledge and answer that was trauma, right, Connie? Because during the Cambodian genocide, it was the rural versus the city dwellers. So, and that class system and the perception of trauma, those individuals who experienced, persecution during that time, was that if you're coming from rural and you're most likely the supporter of the Khmer Rouge, right? So then that reaction of trauma, that oh no, I'm not gonna help that because that could be the Khmer Rouge. That's my persecutor, perpetrator, right? So just remember that still that linger exists in many of the adults. And I even have the adult in my family who refuse to accept that the Cambodian genocide was the act by fellow Cambodian. They would accept that no, it's the Vietnamese double agent, right? The intention to wipe out this indigenous Khmer completely from the Southeast Asian. And that was the only way they can cope of continued life, just to make sure that it's not it. So acceptance is one of the main concern in trauma among the adult in the community, and we're still working on it, and yeah.
Thank you so much, both of you, for just wonderful insight into your work as writers, but also your work in the community. I have a question for Sayang specifically about creating that coloring book. I love how much inspiration you had to do this for your siblings' children, and so I was very curious about the way you learned how to illustrate, especially because you shared that you had been drawn to that in the refugee camp. So I'd love to know what your creative process was like in illustrating these things too. Like, how do you choose the style? You know, what do you prefer to do? What medium do you like to work in?
Thanks, Monica, for that question. Yeah, when I learned, being a child, you play, right? You play and have fun. And as adults, you should still continue to play, okay? Whether that's just drawing or writing, but you should find joy somewhere. But for me, I think the arts was a safekeeping living in a refugee camp as a child, right? I mean, you really just get fed when people come through the gate to feed you, dump food off for you, and clothing and stuff. Yeah, it wasn't any style, I don't think. You know, it took me like 8 years to go to Long Beach City College to finally complete it, because I was trying to find my voice, myself, and what I wanted to study and be when I grow up. And I think I just wasn't smart enough at the time to study more, I don't know, intellectual things and like whether that's biology and things like that. But then I did a lot of soul searching before I decided to major in the arts, and that's really just kind of where I decided to stay in. And I figured I'm just gonna be good where I'm comfortable at.
Oh, okay. Oh,
first of all, to thank you both for sharing. Okay, first of all, I would like to thank you both for sharing the story. When you talk about it, it reminds me quite a bit of my experience when you're talking about the word resilient, right? And you said, okay, resilient is not something that, and in America right now, we want to talk about you're resilient, right? If you're not resilient, you're being left out or something like that. But I remember the word to recapture that when I arrived, I go through the, I was a child labor during the Khmer Rouge, refugee camp, all these, the whole bunch of stuff without education in Cambodia. The first time we get to go to study, we ride a bus school, the yellow bus school. And in the, in the poor community, a lot of African American on the bus school, a lot of them, and there were 20 seats. They only give us one seat with my brother and sister, and I one seat on the back. And I didn't know why was that. And then I cried to my father when I come back and say, they wouldn't let us sit there, plenty of seat, right? Why they wouldn't let us? And then my father laughed at me, and I even get more angry in the sense, why you not take care of me? And he said, do you know where you come from? You think, is that any worse than when you was a labor child, where you don't even have a chance to go to school, you don't even have a bus to ride, you don't even have a classroom to go. By sitting on the bus, you get to sit on the bus, right? And so what's the problem? Just shut up, pretty much it's like, that's not a problem. That would be like now we say the problem you want to have, right? So now all the connection I would see is like, it talking about suppression and to see where we should be grateful about what we have. And I think in America that they allow you to be, like, say, who you want to be, right? Who you want to be. And I feel that now it kind of connect to about democracy and all these things. And I feel that America now kind of retracts in terms of Trump administration, capture all the illegal immigrants and so on and so forth like that. And I feel like, you have not been through the communists. If you've been there, you would not want to do this. Because if I come here to America during this time, whereas a lot of, against immigration and so on and so forth like that, I wouldn't be who I am right now. Because back then, our American, my teacher, Presley, I remember, he said, hey, I see you can go to college. Even just simple word like that, it's like, wow, you can see me more than I can see myself, So those, the kindness of American, I hope it will survive through this administration. So that's all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ming. Hello, Sarah and Seyon. So my question goes back to what you were talking about earlier, Seyon, about play. So growing up as a second-generation Cambodian American, and for those that may not know, my parents are refugees. So in research, I was born here, so I'm considered second generation. Growing up, talking about play, I've only known two things. One, play was jumping rope in our culture, and me. I actually learned, and I'm actually currently teaching Muay Thai kickboxing. Even though I'm doing that, I don't consider myself a Muay Thai fighter. I just like the structure there. I still tell everybody I'm a Khmer fighter. I just happen to like the structure there. But going back to this question, if you were to create a package for our community, our Cambodian community, what would be the different type of playthings you would have, whether it's physical, whether it's activities, so you can help younger generation learn these different histories, because a lot of us don't know about it. So what are some things that we used to play back in Cambodia?
Oh, I know as Sambo was talking about that, I was really good at playing the rubber band jump because I have long legs, I can jump high. Do you guys remember those games? Yeah. So when the kids would raise the rubber band up to their waist and then to their shoulder and then to their head, and then they'll be like, yeah, and then you have to jump with your leg, you can't touch it. It's like a high jump. I know, I was like, my legs are so long that I could like go up really high. But that would be one game. It's fun. Sarah may know more about those games.
Yeah,
Khmer traditional games.
I know of the Cambodian traditional game where there's a two stick, you put two stick together, right? And then it's all a jump, and you have to jump with the stick that move. You know, if you don't move fast enough, and it's open and closed. I remember, but activity like that can engage second generation to understand, and that is why for the first time, California Department of Education commissioned grant Orange County Department of Education to develop and implement the first Cambodian American study model curriculum, right? By 2026, I think it's going to be implementation stage. But that process engaged with the entire community here in Long Beach and all over California, Stockton, to get idea from the community point of view, what would you like to see? And in that curriculum, it has the historical portion, the culture, the tradition, and hoping that those Cambodian American second, third generation now that gone through the high school processes from 5th grade to 12th get the option. They have to take one ethnic study course, and if they happen to take Cambodian, they get a chance to know where their ancestry coming from, and that's the first step for us to engage later generation to connect back with their traumatized first generation refugee or parent. It's gonna open some conversation that can help both. At UCC, we used to have so many programs that close that generational gap, cultural gap, and language gap. One of the biggest factor now is the language gap, right? When you go to school and you come home and you cannot speak properly with your parent that's only speak Khmer and you're speaking English, and so that will help connecting family back into
Love that. Last question, comment. Do you want to come up?
Just pass it back. And then we're going to have refreshment after, I think.
This may be an unfair question, but Cambodia itself has a dictatorship run by a former Khmer Rouge, and it's become pretty much a client state of China. My question is, how do you, is any of your work or other work that you know of from America being translated into Khmer and getting into Cambodia? Because my understanding is that this history that you're trying to teach us here is not being taught properly in Cambodia.
Thank you for that. And if there's a final thought that you would also like to close with,
Yeah,
that would be great.
Yeah, I'll close with answering your question. I think we're hoping because after after the Khmer Rouge, the early 80 and the late 1979 to 80, all Cambodian, millions scattered all over the world. And now we know in the US, America have the largest Cambodian refugee, second by France and Canada, Australia, Italy, as far as South Africa. Imagine the trauma that you have to leave your birthplace in order to start over because you cannot cannot stay because of the memory, right? And if going back to the political, any good leader, they would allow their future generation to learn about the past so that they can not only develop the resiliency, but understand. And I think that's what build that foundation and make the people great, not you know, I know having kids here that I have to experience and go through with them the effort of trying to shield them to true and facts does not develop resiliency. So and we're hoping that in many ways there's so many Cambodians returning to engage, returning home to their birthplace, to just trying to come to terms with their trauma. And for me, closure is to understand what have happened. How come so many talented, educated individuals in that society, in that country, allow such thing to happen to especially children? Because face it, when things happen, who has the biggest impact and who is the sacrifice innocent people, especially children, and how as individual now as an adult, you know, what we can do and when that's happened. So for me, the only way that I can do is to ensure that that I'm being aware of it, that I do my part by letting people know to let's understand and come to terms with our past. Let's at least acknowledge so that we can be kind to one another, so that we can be compassionate, and that's what we're hoping. That's what community is for, right?
I think it's important not to let fear petrify you and have that be the person to dictate your trajectory of life, whether, you know, if you have a voice as an artist or a performer, to be able to be silenced. But I think again, it's I know other artists, you know, the ma'am that's going to be the keynote speaker. She's, so there's musicians working with the Cambodian government to try to allow that creativity to, instead of like staying with the same type of traditional music back then, to allow artists to create. So that's also happening, right? Allowing people to make and produce things that's different. And I know during the Cambodian tribunal, there was also the outcome of that was to be able to create a monument and also books to teach about the history of Cambodia with the genocide and the mass killing. But I think as educators and artists, just like this country, if you were to work with the government, a small group of people could still make a huge difference. And I don't think we as activists, artists out there shouldn't stop ourselves from creating and protect humanity.
Vichet, did you have?
Yeah, can I
And
just say
then
something
after
real
that, I'd like to call up both.
So it's important to understand the ways in which our history is deeply interconnected. And you know, for the both of you, I just want to thank you. I have such reverence and admiration for you both, sort of existing at this access of both community and the work that you have, have created intention around. And then also the ways in which you've also honored your own artistic practice. And so I guess my question really quickly, if I may, I wanted to just know how do you sort of balance those two intentions, your work for your community and the work for yourself?
Well, for me, just make sure being aware. I talk about trauma. So everything that I do, I'm now taking a moment to pause. Like, I love buffet. and food and mom and I are the worst grocery shopper, because we would get anything that we see as that's on sale, mom likes, and then the refrigerator was always overflow. And I realize that and remind myself and mom that it's our trauma. There was one point that, food was obsolete. And I've been through 4 years of food deprivation. So when it comes to food, I can't throw anything away. And mom saved even a spoon left of something that she liked. And of course I have to throw that away. After a week later, it's molding. And so those are the things that everything we do now, starting from my house, it's just being aware. Not just your past, but being aware and where you're at, and to be healthy, right? Mentally and emotionally, and just by recognizing your action, what you do, and just, that's all.
Yeah, thank you for that. I know community work is really heavy, right? It's a heavy lift, and I think for me, I'm just gonna give a short answer, and then we're gonna try to close it out, is that I really go to this incubation time for myself, where I sometimes just really cover my whole body under the covers until I get my emotion, my energy back, because the next day is like another day to give back, and I want to try to be there as present as I can.
Thank you both.